I've always looked upon Glasslough as a little magical kingdom, special place. And as the rest of Ireland and as Glasslough. We're right on the border of Monaghan, Tyrone and Armagh, and also Kingdom of Oriel, and also a divide in the old Kingdom of Ulster. Castlemanship, a manual of which I wrote. Castlemanship is the art of living in a castle with no staff, castle which once had 33 indoor servants, so many maintenance men that nothing ever got maintained, and 28 gardeners who probably used nail scissors to cut all this. Today, I've made certain rules, because my daughter and my children have taken over, and I have 33 years' experience in this little manual on how to live here, and it's not quite as hard as you may think. Rule 1, the roofs. Castle, a big house is a ship upside down, and the roof is your hull. Now keep it watertight, because if a ship's hull leaks, the ship sinks. Rule number 2, the other end, drains. Keep the drains unblocked. In other words, treat it as a living creature. Give it a laxative occasionally. The gutters, make sure they're clear.
Nobody can actually afford to support a place like this, and they have to make their own money. On the other hand, it doesn't want to be too commercialized. It has to, for me, it has to retain all the original character of the place. You could make a lot of money running Butlins and golf courses and things like that, but to me that would destroy what we're actually trying to do. We're trying to preserve the place as it is and its full flavour and its full character.
Now they need to go out. Bit better. Double on the halfies, get back into it. Well, this is Glasslough, 100 acres of magic water, and there's the house. We'd rebuilt it about 2 or 3 times, but it's in pretty good state. I must say it looks lovely in this light. A lot of people think this is the most beautiful estate in Ireland. I rather agree with them. There's so much happens here. We've got trees 180 feet high. We've got the great forest of Trua there, all that's left of it. And there's not only this lake, but there's another big one up there with a bird sanctuary. 2 more little ones, and then there's a strange lake the other side of this wood. Well, we used to be called the ascendancy. Perhaps you could now call us the descendancy. But look, the Anglo-Irish provided all the best English generals. Gort, Montgomery, Wavell, Alexander, who lived 2 miles away. I was told in English, I said, you couldn't win a war without us, without Irish generals. And sometimes they get rather cross. Wellington was an Irish general. Last time I went up there was with Mick Jagger, trying to get away from the convent girls who were chasing him. They wouldn't go till he'd written his name on their shoulders, arms. Got shot a bit somewhere. And he lost it. This Mick Jagger went up. The Borstal convent came over on the picnic, 400 girls. Chased him round the lake, and finally he said, where can I get away from them? The top of the Protestant church tower. They wouldn't dare follow. And he came down and on condition they'd leave him alone if he wrote his name. They had no paper, so he wrote it on their bodies with felt tip. About 6 weeks later, Reverend Mother rang up and said, Mr. Leslie, the girls refused to wash. What are we going to do about it? There, that was quite a day.
I have sort of roots here. I love this place. I love coming up here. But I don't think I could live here. I'm a city person. So I look on this as a focal point for the family that helps keep the family together in contact with each other. The fact that we have this estate is a wonderful asset. I've always said, I mean, my brother tends to take the line, well, who needs it? It's something from the past. I want to get on and be a dynamic 20th century person. But I say no, because dynamic 20th century people like Mick Jagger and millionaires all want to have a big country estate. Now, we're at the bottom of the ladder financially, but we've got the country estate, so we can find a way of making it viable, of bringing it into the 20th century and keeping it going. We can have the best of both worlds. We can be penniless and still enjoy every luxury when we want it.
Now, this is the drawing room, which George Moore and W.B. Yeats said was one of the prettiest rooms in Ireland. Certainly a lovely room, with marvellous views of the lake, and you could live in a room like this. Here's my mother, my grandmother, and there are the Duke of Connaught's 3 lovely daughters, among them Queen of Sweden. They all stayed here. This piano was Paderewski's, that's his bust, and he chose it for my grandmother. She and her sister Jenny, you know, were brilliant pianists, and it's the exact twin of the one at Bayreuth, which Wagner composed Tristan and Isolde on, and I was once privileged to play it. Great honor. More music, Wordsworth's harp. Perhaps the most beautiful thing in the room is this fireplace, which my great-grandfather brought back from Italy. It's 600 years old. It was made by Luca della Robbia. Now, what have we got over here? Oh, yes. Family reach-me-downs. You see every family hands stuff down. And Granny Leonie was the sister of Jenny Churchill. And all Winston's toys and baby dresses were handed down to my sister. Well, she broke most of the toys, but at least one of the baby dresses survived. There was one other rather scruffy one, so we gave it to the Duke of Marlborough to hang up at Blenheim. I know never flew bombs one way or another. Probably needs it at the moment.
This is the other side of the house. This is where the children and the nannies and the governesses lived. It was once a hive of activity, but now it lies empty waiting for a facelift. We're very lucky that we've no real structural problems with the house. We've no dry rot and no trouble with the roof. Although a lick of paint and half a ton of plaster wouldn't go amiss. The telescope comes in quite handy. We have various problems with little people swimming and fishing and poaching where they shouldn't, and it's quite a powerful telescope so we can keep an eye on who's doing what. This was once the nursery. This is where the children spent their time. Now it's actually a store to keep some of the furniture dry, again waiting for its restoration. As somebody once described these houses, it's breastfeeding a dinosaur, and I think you can see why. This is the old billiard room. It was actually built part of the old house before it was pulled down. The library as well next door. They decided to keep it and built the long gallery to join up the house. All the damage in here was done just from one leaking gutter. A seal went between 2 pieces of guttering and the damp got in and dry rot set in. We lost all the plaster and woodwork and shuttering on one wall and the supports, the lovely carved supports in the ceiling, and half of the floor and all the radiator covers and things like that. All the wonderful frescoes that are copies of Michelangelo's work done by Sir John Leslie when he built the house. A lot of them have been destroyed, the plasters come off. There's holes in the walls everywhere, and it would just take an unbelievable amount to put it back together, although it's not impossible.
Well, you see, this house was the last word in Victorian high tech. We had a first class in the lift, and this marvellous old loo with an ivory handle, and you could adjust the above so you can adjust the amount of flush, and it's been working since the house was built 130 years ago. And we call it the throne room because 4 royals have reigned here, and so has Mick Jagger.
Coming up to the end of the century, the place is very much in the balance. In the next 4 to 5 years, if we make it, I think the place will be here in the 21st century and beyond, hopefully for a lot longer.
Well, you've had Dallas, the Ewings, the Colbys, dysentery, now you have the Leslies, who are much more fun. After the bishop came Dean of Dromore, who was arrested for high treason. Today he'd have been editor of Private Eye, I think. His son Robert, Dean Swift's friend, who bankrupted the place. Charles Powell Leslie, last member for Monaghan, who refused an earldom for not voting for the Act of Union. Then came his son, who did very little. He left this capable old widow who fed everyone during the famine. And she ran the place until her son came of age. The third Charles Powell Leslie was quite an amateur architect. He never married, but among his more successful erections was the farmyard and the clubhouse.
I've always thought that sort of the bad thing in the old days about the landed gentry was they tended to have the privilege. They were sitting on top of the peasantry, drawing their income from the peasantry, and the peasantry was sort of weren't invited to tea. You know, the estate workers came once a year at Christmas, and they lived in their sort of big cottages, that sort of thing. But Sammy, very sensibly, I think, is concentrating on making this house available to people in the locality, providing functions, teas, tours, weddings, and so forth. So this house is now becoming something that belongs to everybody in County Monaghan and in the catchment area around the north. So everybody, you know, who sort of 100 years ago would have been excluded from it, can now come and enjoy it and treat it as theirs as much as anybody else's.
Well, as you know, the place belongs to the 5 children, and I suppose I've got the short straw. No, it's something I've always wanted to do, I've always felt very strongly about the 5 and of the place, and apply there. The old days when the home farm part of the estate had gone, really. I mean, only about 180 acres of grazing with the estate, and now it's not really time to be getting into farming. To run the estate, the forestry, the commercial bit of it, really would spoil the beauty of the estate, so it's more amenity as well as commercial. And these places really need people to keep them alive. I mean, it bothers a lot of people more than it bothers me. I don't mind having all the people around the house, as long as they respect us and they enjoy it. It's not as like a home as such. You're more a guardian here to look after the place rather than this is my home. I feel I belong more to this place than it belongs to me.
I probably am the last dilettante. I've tried a bit of everything and possibly done nothing very well. I've made films, I've done music, composed way out music, I've written books, flown aircraft, built this riding centre across countries, had children, had 2 wives. I've tried everything. Oh, and flying saucers. I think I really was rather instrumental on getting them publicised. If you like the life, I couldn't think of a better one. It's a hell of a job keeping up a big place like this, but it's worth it because it gives so much pleasure, and it's really, I think, a duty. If you've got a lovely piece of this planet which relies on you to be looked after and cherished and prevent gombeen men moving in and developers and people who want to cut the trees, then I think you've just got to stick with it and preserve it. I've tried for 30 years, a certain amount of success, not always. Now I've given my children the task, and I think they're going to make a go of it and perhaps restore this place soon to its great Victorian glory, then I'll be happy. I'll feel that 30 years was worth it. Well, I've been asked what are the Anglo-Irish. I'd say you take the best of the Irish, the best of the English, mix them up, you come up with us.